Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are taking on the absolute heavyweight champions of global wealth, manufacturing and services. Now, I know when you hear the words macroeconomic theory, you might instantly expect dry, dusty textbooks. But here, we're going to break down the global economy with the serious, analytical weight it deserves, even if we sometimes use visuals that look a bit like intricate elbow macaroni art to get the point across. All jokes aside, understanding how nations generate their wealth is the ultimate key to understanding how the modern world actually works. We're going to map out exactly what happens when physical creation collides with the intangible digital frontier.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover the two pillars of the economy: manufacturing, services, a head-to-head comparison, servitization, and finally, the hybrid future.
Section 1. Two pillars of the economy. Defining the engines.
Section 2. Manufacturing, making tangible goods.
At a macroscopic level, economic systems are fundamentally categorized by one simple question: where do they generate the vast majority of their gross domestic product, and where do they actually employ their citizens? While most modern nations contain elements of both making physical things and providing intangible services, they almost always tilt heavily toward one or the other as they develop and mature on the world stage. Let's fire up the furnaces and look at the first great engine of wealth. This is the industrial process in all its glory. We're talking about the gritty, high-energy conversion of raw, unrefined materials into finished, physical products you can actually hold in your hands. To make manufacturing work, a nation needs massive scale and serious physical infrastructure. Think sprawling deep-water ports, endless miles of rail lines, and highly complex global supply chains. Some standout examples are China, universally known as the world's factory for its massive output, alongside rapidly growing hubs like Vietnam. And then you have Germany, which takes a totally different approach by specializing in high-end, highly complex industrial machinery. These nations are literally physically building the world we live in.
When this engine is running well, its strengths are incredibly powerful. First up is scalability. Physical goods can be boxed up and exported across the globe. Second, and absolutely crucially for a society, it creates a broad base of middle-skilled jobs. These are the exact jobs that historically support a robust middle class and social stability. But perhaps the most vital strength today: strategic autonomy. If your country has the ability to produce essential goods domestically, things like structural steel, life-saving medicine, and advanced computer chips, you possess a massive national security advantage. You just aren't at the mercy of another nation's export policies during a crisis.
So, the crucial point is, for all that incredible strength, manufacturing carries some really heavy, systemic weaknesses. These economies face massive environmental costs due to their high energy consumption. They're also incredibly vulnerable to global logistics disruptions. Just think back to recent global shipping crises, where a single blocked canal or a port closure sent shockwaves around the entire planet. But the ultimate weakness here is the automation risk. Factories are becoming incredibly advanced, which means we are rapidly entering an era where high industrial output no longer requires high human employment. The machines are making the machines.
Section 3. Services, the intangible engine.
If manufacturing is all about physical brawn and concrete infrastructure, the service economy is entirely about the invisible. This engine derives its massive value from intangibles. We're talking about human labor, specialized expertise, boundless creativity, and incredibly complex digital systems. We're leaving the factory floor and entering the realms of finance, software, consulting, healthcare, education, and entertainment. This is where you find the United States, an absolute behemoth where services make up approximately 80% of the entire economy. 80%. You also see the United Kingdom, heavily reliant on global finance, and Singapore, which has strategically positioned itself as the premier logistics and banking hub of Asia. These nations aren't primarily exporting boxes, they're exporting knowledge and capabilities.
The absolute superpower of the service economy is digital flexibility. Services are often completely digital and completely location independent. An architect sitting in London can seamlessly design a building in Dubai without ever leaving their desk. This makes service economies remarkably immune to the physical supply chain shocks that absolutely terrify manufacturing nations. Furthermore, the profit margins are staggering. Think about a piece of software or a new financial product. And this brilliantly illustrates the point. Once it's created, it has a near-zero marginal cost of reproduction. You can sell it 1 million times without having to buy a single ounce more of raw materials. This environment acts as a massive magnet for high-skilled talent and fosters rapid, world-changing innovation.
However,
The intangible nature of services creates its own unique set of severe vulnerabilities. Service economies are incredibly fragile. Because they don't produce physical things, their wealth relies entirely on stable regulatory environments, strict intellectual property laws, and human capital. If confidence in the banking system drops or intellectual property just isn't protected, the value evaporates instantly. Poof, gone. Even more concerning is the inequality. Service economies often suffer from a harsh winner-take-all dynamic. Because the work is so highly specialized, it tends to create a massive wealth gap between highly educated elite professionals and pretty much everyone else in the society.
Section 4. Head-to-head comparison. The clash of economies.
Let's systematically walk through this clash. Imagine this as a precise, perfectly organized grid, perhaps mapped out with that straight, dry pasta I joked about earlier. We are looking at a stark juxtaposition here. For primary output, manufacturing gives us physical goods, while services deliver knowledge, time, and digital access. For the growth engine, manufacturing relies strictly on heavy capital investment and relentless efficiency. Services rely on innovation and human capital. Now look at labor needs. Manufacturing requires skilled labor but is aggressively trending toward automation. Services, on the other hand, demand highly educated, highly specialized labor. And finally, resilience. A manufacturing economy's resilience is based entirely on physical security and open trade routes. A service economy's resilience is dependent on regulatory stability and uninterrupted global digital connectivity.
Section 5. Servitization. The blurring lines.
Just when we have these two economic engines neatly separated into their own distinct boxes, modern technology comes along and aggressively scrambles the board. The traditional divide between making things and providing services is rapidly vanishing. To understand this massive shift, we need a new vocabulary word: product as a service, or PaaS. This is a revolutionary business model where companies no longer just sell you a physical product and walk away. Instead, they sell you the ongoing utility of that product. You aren't buying the thing anymore, you are subscribing to what the thing actually does.
This concept is perfectly captured by a great micronarrative. Rolls-Royce, one of the most famous manufacturers on Earth, realized that airlines don't actually want to own jet engines. They just want their planes to fly. So Rolls-Royce offers something called Power by the Hour. They retain ownership of the physical jet engine, they handle all the maintenance, they monitor all the complex data, and they literally just charge the airline for the hours the engine is actually providing thrust. Just like that, a legendary, heavy industry manufacturer has successfully transformed itself into a service provider.
Rolls-Royce is just one example of three major trends that are erasing the traditional economic divide. Trend 1 is that product as a service model we just talked about. Trend 2 is dematerialization. This means the wealth is shifting from the hardware to the software inside it. Think about your smartphone for a second. It's a physical object, for sure, but the vast majority of its value and the ongoing revenue it generates for the company doesn't come from the glass and metal. It comes from the dematerialized software, the operating system, the apps, and the cloud services. Trend 3 is the smart factory, also known as Industry 4.0. Manufacturing is now heavily integrating artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. Modern assembly lines are becoming highly data-driven environments that increasingly require way more software engineers and data analysts than they do traditional factory workers.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 6, the hybrid economy future. As these lines continue to blur, global leaders have realized that betting entirely on just one pillar is a complete recipe for disaster. The smartest players out there are refusing to choose sides. The takeaway from all of this data is incredibly clear. The most successful 21st century economies are hybrids. They require two indispensable halves to make a winning whole. On one side, they maintain a sophisticated manufacturing base. Why? Because as we've seen, this ensures absolute physical security and supply chain independence in a chaotic world. But on the other side, they actively leverage a dominant services sector. This allows them to capture the absolute highest value profits and foster the rapid innovation available in the global market. You absolutely need the physical anchor, and you need the digital sail.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today and leaves us with one final, provocative thought for you to take away. Step outside and really look at your own city's infrastructure. Look at where your friends and neighbors work. Is your local economy fundamentally built on making things, or is it built on serving them? And more importantly, as these lines continue to blur, is your community actually prepared for this rapidly approaching hybrid future? Think about it. Thanks for joining me, and keep questioning the world around you.